Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni, known in English as Michelangelo, was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of the High Renaissance. Born in the Republic of Florence, his work was inspired by models from classical antiquity and had a lasting influence on Western art. Michelangelo's creative abilities and mastery in a range of artistic arenas define him as an archetypal Renaissance man, along with his rival and elder contemporary, Leonardo da Vinci. Given the sheer volume of surviving correspondence, sketches, and reminiscences, Michelangelo is one of the best documented artists of the 16th century. He was lauded by contemporary biographers as the most accomplished artist of his era. Michelangelo was born on March 6, 1475 in Caprese, known today as Caprese Michelangelo, a small town situated in Valtellerina, near Arezzo, Tuscany. For several generations, his family had been small-scale bankers in Florence. But the bank failed, and his father, Ludovico di Leonardo Buonarroti Simoni, briefly took a government post in Caprese. At the time when his mother Francesca di Neri del Miniato di Siena gave birth to Michelangelo, his father was the town's judicial administrator and podesta or local administrator of Chiusi della Verna. The Buonarrotis claimed to descend from the Countess Matilda di Canossa, a claim that remains unproven, but which Michelangelo believed. Several months after Michelangelo's birth, the family returned to Florence, where he was raised. During his mother's later prolonged illness, and after her death in 1481 when he was 6 years old, Michelangelo lived with a nanny and her husband, a stonecutter, in the town of Settignano, where his father owned a marble quarry and a small farm. There he gained his love for marble. As Giorgio Vasari quotes him, "If there is some good in me, it is because I was born in the subtle atmosphere of your country of Arezzo. Along with the milk of my nurse, I received the knack of handling chisel and hammer, with which I make my figures." As a young boy, Michelangelo was sent to Florence to study grammar under the humanist Francesco da Urbino. He showed no interest in his schooling, preferring to copy paintings from churches and seek the company of other painters. The city of Florence was at that time Italy's greatest center of the arts and learning. Art was sponsored by the Signoria, the town council, the merchant guilds, and wealthy patrons such as the Medici and their banking associates. The Renaissance, a renewal of classical scholarship and the arts, had its first flowering in Florence. In the early 15th century, the architect Filippo Brunelleschi, having studied the remains of classical buildings in Rome, had created two churches, San Lorenzo's and Santo Spirito, which embodied the classical precepts. The sculptor Lorenzo Ghiberti had labored for 50 years to create the north and east bronze doors of the baptistry, which Michelangelo was to describe as the gates of paradise. The exterior niches of the Church of Orsa Michela contained a gallery of works by the most acclaimed sculptors of Florence: Donatello, Ghiberti, Andrea del Verrocchio, and Nanni di Banco. The interiors of the older churches were covered with frescoes, mostly in late medieval, but also in the early Renaissance style, begun by Giotto and continued by Masaccio in the Brancacci Chapel, both of whose works Michelangelo studied and copied in drawings. During Michelangelo's childhood, a team of painters had been called from Florence to the Vatican to decorate the walls of the Sistine Chapel. Among them was Domenico Ghirlandaio, a master in fresco painting, perspective, figure drawing, and portraiture, who had the largest workshop in Florence in 1488. At age 13, Michelangelo was apprenticed to Ghirlandaio. The next year, his father persuaded Ghirlandaio to pay Michelangelo as an artist, which was rare for someone of 14. When in 1489, Lorenzo de' Medici, de facto ruler of Florence, asked Ghirlandaio for his two best pupils, Ghirlandaio sent Michelangelo and Francesco Granacci. From 1490 to 1492, Michelangelo attended the Platonic Academy, a humanist academy founded by the Medici. There, his work and outlook were influenced by many of the most prominent philosophers and writers of the day, including Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola, and Poliziano. At this time, Michelangelo sculpted the reliefs Madonna of the Stairs, 1490 to 1492, and Battle of the Centaurs, 1491 to 1492, the latter based on a theme suggested by Poliziano and commissioned by Lorenzo de' Medici. Michelangelo worked for a time with the sculptor Bertoldo di Giovanni. When he was 17, another pupil, Pietro Torrigiano, struck him on the nose, causing the disfigurement that is conspicuous in the portraits of Michelangelo.